Hi, I'm Dave Foy from Design Build Web, and I'm here today to show you how to use the amazing new single builder in Elementor Pro. So in today's video, to show you the power of the new single builder, I'm going to recreate a really nice single blog post design from a company you might have heard of using Elementor Pro. So the blog post design we'll be recreating is from the blog published by Flywheel. Flywheel, you might already know, are a really great specialist WordPress hosting company. Here's the blog post design from Flywheel's blog I'll be recreating today. Their blog post layout is really very nice indeed. High impact, full width header image at the top, lovely white, clean, clear layout, fairly narrow main content column here, which makes the text really easy to read, nice short line lengths, couple of sidebars, either side of the main column with some extra functionality and content. And if we whiz right down past the article itself, we have an email sign-up box, plus comments, links to more articles, the latest 3, a full-width email sign-up section, and links to Flywheel's social channels. Now, there's no way we'd be able to recreate this design using our theme's pre-built single post template, but we certainly can achieve this with Elementor Pro. I'll show you. Let's get started. Just a few quick bits for setup first. In Elementor settings, style, content width, I'll change the default content width from 1140 pixels to 1250 pixels to match Flywheel's blog layout. The fonts they use are Montserrat for headings and Source Sans Pro for body copy, both Google fonts, so we can use those in Elementor right away. Also in a couple of places, Flywheel use Museo Sans Rounded, which isn't a Google font, but is available in Adobe's Typekit. So I just connected to my Typekit kit with its ID under the integrations tab here, so I can also use that font in Elementor. It's really easy. Couple of other things to very quickly mention before we get started. For speed, I already recreated Flywheel's header, the logo and nav, using Elementor Pro's header builder feature. So in my templates, under header, I added a new header, and I just used Elementor's blocks feature as the starting point, so it was really quick to make, took minutes. I then set this header template to replace my theme's header, really easy. And I did the same for the footer too, using Elementor Pro's footer builder. Now the single post template I'll be creating today will be automatically applied to all our blog posts. So before the video, I already added a few blog posts you can see here under all posts. I've literally just copied and pasted the content from the last few Flywheel blog posts. So you can see there's the title here. The main body content is here. And I added a featured image to each post too. That's the main full width header image at the very top of each post. I assigned each post to a different author, and that's the same author name for each post as it is on the Flywheel blog. In fact, I added each author as a new user in my test site here. And I added each post to the same category that Flywheel used as well. Okay, that's enough setup. We're ready to roll. First job, we need to create our blank single post template. That's in Elementor My Templates and under the Single tab, because we want to create a template for single posts. So I'll add new single. Under select post type, we want this particular template to be applied to single blog posts only, so I'll choose post. Give the template a name for future reference. Single blog post is good. And click create template. At this point, we're given the chance to choose a pre-built black and white template, one of Elementor's blocks. Now this is a very useful feature. I used it to make the header earlier, but for this we want total control, a blank page. So I'll click X to close. Notice the header at the top here. Now this is being pulled in from the header template I created earlier. It's good to be able to see this while we're designing the rest of the page. First job, we need to set this template so it's using the entire full width of the page, so we have the full canvas to play with. To do that, come down to the settings icon bottom left, and then under general settings, let's change the page layout to Elementor full width. That'll give us the full width of the page to play with, but it'll keep the header and footer, which is what we want. Next, when building this template, we'll also need some real content from our actual blog posts to work with. So let's choose which of our existing blog posts we want to use as a preview when building the template. So to do that, we're still in settings, under preview settings. Now you can see it's already suggesting the latest post here. It's called the best free stock photo sites in 2018, and that one's great. So I'll apply and preview. Now nothing appears here yet, And that's because we haven't added any dynamic content. We haven't added any Elementor widgets. That's okay. Let's remedy that now. Let's flick back to Flywheel's blog post. Starting at the top, the first element is this full width header image. So back to our single post template. I'll click Add New Section. We only need one column. And we want this image to always stretch full width and change its shape appropriately at different screen sizes. So rather than adding an image widget, we need to add our image as a background to this section. So I'll click the section settings icon in the middle of the section. And then in the section settings on the left under style and background, remember the image at the top is our post's featured image. I could add a background image manually here from my media library, but then every blog post we view would have that exact same image every time. Not good. We want a dynamic featured image pulled in automatically from each post we're viewing. So to do that, instead click Dynamic and Featured Image. That's now pulling in the featured image dynamically from the post we're using to preview. Excellent. We can't see much of the image though. That's because background images aren't inline content, so they're not adding any height to the section yet. We need to tell this section to be a certain height so that we can see the image properly. There are a number of ways of doing that, but the way I'll handle it here, in this section settings under the layout tab and in height, I'll choose min height. I could set this height in pixels, but I'd prefer to set the height as a relative measurement. So if instead I set this using VH, that stands for viewport height, that will then be a percentage of the height of each visitor's screen. I think 40 looks pretty good there. I find using VH helps the image be visible properly at different responsive screen sizes. This background image needs positioning properly now, so back to the Style tab. Still under background, I'll set position to be top center. Repeat, we want that to no repeat. We don't want this image to continually tile over and over again. Under size, I'll set that to cover. Cover makes sure that the image always covers the entire section. Perfect. All right, let's have a quick preview. And that is looking good. Let's keep moving. Looking back at the Flywheel blog design, so let's add these 3 columns now. So back to our template. I'll add a new section, choose 3 columns. I'll roughly resize these for now by dragging them. So left can be around about 10%. Right, I think it should be around about 25%. That'll be the middle, roughly 60% or so. Later, we can click each column settings and type the exact percentage we want. And you can set different widths for tablet and mobile too. I won't be looking at responsive in this video, just purely for time. Right, let's take the middle main column first. We need the title of the post, dynamically pulled in from each blog post. So to do that, we'll use Elementor Pro's Post Title widget. So I'll click the widget menu up here and scroll down to the Theme Elements section. This is where all the widgets are that allow us to use Elementor as a theme builder. So here's the Post Title widget. I'll drag it in. Notice it's automatically pulling in the title of the preview post we set earlier, which is great. Now, Flywheel's post titles use Montserrat as the font. So in style and typography, I'll set Montserrat. I think there's also a little bit more line height, so I'll set that at 1.2 ems. Check that against their design. Yeah, looks good so far. Now notice there's a gap between their header image and the content below, so we'll add that to ours too. Now I always like to add spacing working downwards if I can, so I'll add margin to the bottom of this header section. So click the settings icon up here and margins in advanced. I'll unlink the margin values and we just want to set the bottom margin to 80. Now that looks loads better already. Next, we have the date and the author name. So for that, we need the post info widget, and that is under the theme elements as well because it's dynamic content. I'll drag it in. Now we don't need all that info, just the date and the author. So I'll delete time and comments, and I'll switch date and author around. Edit the date. I'll remove the link to date archives and turn off the icon. I'll set it to none. Then edit the author. I'll remove the icon here too. And then in the before field, just type by. Now I need to sort out this gap. So I'll set that in style. I'll set that to 7. Okay, check Flywheel's blog. And their post info font size is a little bit smaller, so back to our template. And under text, I'll set the size to 16 instead. Let's preview that. Check Flywheel again. Well, their headline and post info are a little tighter to each other than ours, so back to our template. There are a few ways of doing this, but here I'll add a little bit of negative bottom margin to the post title. That'll pull the date and author up a bit. Preview that again. And that's looking awesome so far. Now to add the post content. So we need to pull in the main content field of our blog posts. As a reminder, that's the content of this field here when we added our blog posts. To do that, we need the post content widget. This time, I'll just start typing here to find it instead of scrolling. There it is. I'll drag it into place. And there's the content from this post. I'm really happy with that. Now, I already set Source Sans Pro as my default body font in Elementor settings before we began. But if I wanted to change the styling, I could do that really easily in the Style tab for this widget. Onto the left column now. A reminder, we have an author profile photo here. And for that, we need the author box widget. So I'll type that here again to filter the list. And there it is. So let's drag that in. I'll leave the source setting here as current author. It's pulling in the current author's profile photo automatically. I'll turn off display name and biography. And there's no need to change any styling. This narrow column is forcing this image to be pretty much the size we need, but there are loads of options and styling controls in this widget if you need it. Then underneath here, let's have a look on Flywheel. They have the name of the current category being viewed. So for that, we need the post info widget again. Now we actually need none of these options this time. So I'm going to delete all of them, but the first one, I'll edit that and I'll change the type to terms. And the taxonomy we want to display is categories. I'll turn off the icon. And then in style, let's have the alignment centered. Now it has a background color. Background color is set in advanced in this widget. So advanced, background, classic. And I'll set the color as this reddy pink. Now note, I set all these colors in the palette in Elementor's color picker up here before I started. And then set the border radius to something very round, like 30 pixels. Not bad, but we still need a few text tweaks. So back to style and text. And the color, I'll set the text color to white. And then in typography, let's set the weight a little bit more to 600. Set that to be uppercase. And I'll also set the text size just a little bit less to 16 pixels. All right, let's quickly check Flywheel. Not bad. Let's keep going. Next, let's add the social sharing icons. So we add the share buttons widget. Flywheel use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Pinterest. So I'll switch Google Plus for Pinterest and drag it to the bottom. Set some styling. So the view is icon only. The skin is framed. Shape is circle. And only one column. So that now fills the full column, which is great. So I'll preview that. Now it's looking good, but a little bit squashed. First, I just want to add about 30 pixels left and right padding to this section holding the columns. It'll be very useful, especially on smaller screens, leaving some breathing room. I'll actually do that for every section that we add to the page. And I also want to add a bit more breathing space, more white space between the left and middle columns here. So I'll add about 20 pixels right-hand padding to the left column to add some space inside it. So click the column settings and then in advanced, unlink the padding values and add 20 pixels right padding. Let's preview that. And yep, I'm pretty happy with that so far. So that's the main column and the left column. It's now time to build the right-hand column. So over to Flywheel, here's their right-hand sidebar. Until now, I've shown you every single setting step by step, but I don't want this video to be really long. So I'm now going to build the right-hand sidebar myself, but I'll fast forward the video and then quickly explain how I built each part. So there's an email sign-up box, a list of posts, an advert for local by Flywheel, and a little call out here. So if we go back to our template, but fast forward past me building the entire sidebar, here it is. So here's just a heading widget set to be H3, and in style I set the text color to light blue, and in typography set the font to Montserrat, a lighter font weight, 300. and set it to uppercase. Here's an Elementor Pro form widget. Now we don't have the styling controls to place the button inside the form field as Flywheel did, though I could achieve it with some custom CSS. Now this looks perfectly fine though, and I'd argue it's a little easier to understand. There's nothing special styling wise here. The main thing to know is in the style tab of the form widget and under field, I set the border radius on the email field to be really rounded, again 30 pixels, and also the exact same with the button too. I dragged in a spacer widget here, set to 20 pixels. There are a few ways you can add more space between elements vertically. I just went with the spacer widget here because it's very easy. The top posts section, I actually duplicated the first heading I made and then dragged the duplicate here and then just turned off uppercase in the typography settings. Notice in advanced, under border, I added a light grey bottom border to the heading and also some padding. So I just added 10 pixels bottom padding to the heading so that there's 10 pixels space between the text and the borderline. Now for the top post list, well, the Elementor post widget is perfect for this. To get a simple list of posts, I just used the classic skin in one column and set to only 4 posts. Turned each post image off and turned off the excerpt and the metadata and the read more as well. Under query, that's where you set which post to show here. I actually created a new category earlier called top posts, and I assigned the blog posts that I want to appear here to that top posts category, and they'll just be the most important posts you want to highlight. Then down at the bottom, in exclude, I chose current post so we don't see the actual post that we're viewing in this list. And finally, in style, under layout, I set rows gap to 0. Now this still leaves a gap between the posts. There is a minimum, it won't let you set less than, but it looks great to me. And I set the alignment to center. And finally, under content, set the text color to gray and the typography to Montserrat 16 size. And that's top post done. Then there's another spacer widget here. The local by Flywheel ad. Now I actually created this as a separate template in the template library, just in case we want to use this advert easily in other places on the site too. So just in my templates, I added a new page template, here it is. So in the section settings, I actually set the content width of this to just 350. I don't want it wider than that ever, so it forces it to that size. Then in the column settings, I added a background color to the single column here. Then in the advanced tab of the column, I added some padding inside the column to create a bit of space. And all this is just an image, some text, and a button. And this bit here, this little flag, is also a separate image. Now I added that image to the top of the column, but then in that image widget's custom CSS, I just added a bit of CSS to position this image exactly where Flywheel have it, sticking out at the side. Now that's not essential, but it is a nice effect. Then, once I'd finished building this particular template, I then dragged in the template widget here, and from the dropdown, chose the template that I created. And this call out here is really straightforward. It's just a heading, text, and an image. I won't talk you through all that. Right, let's preview this. That's looking pretty good. Now I just think there needs to be a bit more breathing room between these two columns, a bit more space. So I'm going to add a little right hand padding to the middle column here. So back to the template. I'll click the column settings icon on the middle column and then in advanced and padding. Let's unlink the padding and try, let's see, 30 pixels. Yeah, preview that again. Yeah, that's looking great. Almost there. So now let's fix the final parts of this template, and that's the elements that appear at the end of the article itself. So back over to Flywheel's blog again and scroll to the end of the article. First, the email sign up box at the end of the article. Now notice this is a box with a grey line all around it and a yellow border at the bottom. And then inside that box is a heading, text, and a form, and they're all wrapped inside this box. And there's also a funky little yellow tag sticking out at the side. Okay, back to our template. I could just start adding a heading widget, a text widget, a form widget. The problem is they all need to be wrapped in a box with a grey border. So we need something that will wrap around all those elements. Now the way to do that is to nest a new column here inside our main column. and we can then apply the border and the padding inside it to that nested column itself. That's really easy. I'll drag in a columns widget. Now the columns widget actually comes with its own section. So first in the section settings, I'll set the columns in this section to be no gap because we don't want any space around this email box. The columns widget comes with 2 columns by default. I'll just delete one of them. We only need one. And now I'll add in the heading and the text and the form. I'll fast forward the video to do that because you don't need to see every step there. It's just a heading widget, a text editor widget, and the form widget. I forgot to mention earlier, in the form widget settings, you can integrate the form with various email marketing services like MailChimp or Drip, or even via Zapier to hundreds more. Now, I'll need to add a bit of padding to the inside of the column too, just for a bit of breathing space. I'll do that now. And now to add in the grey border all the way around. So in the column settings, I'll add a 1 pixel grey border all the way around. I'll choose a nice light grey colour here. The box has got rounded corners, so let's have an 8 pixel border radius. And there was a yellow border at the bottom too. And we can't have a separate bottom yellow border with these settings, but we can fake that using box shadow. So in box shadow, I'll firstly set the yellow colour for the shadow, a nice solid yellow colour. Then just set everything to 0 because we don't want any spread or blur like with normal shadows. And now I'll just set the vertical shadow to 4, and that gives us the solid line. Perfect. Now let's just sort the little yellow tag sticking out the side. I'm going to drag in an image widget to the top, and then choose the image. I already added it to my media library earlier. I'll set in style, I'll set the image size to around 40, 44. Then in advanced, we need a little custom CSS here to position it exactly where we want it. So I'll go down to custom CSS in advanced and just have a little play with those. And that is looking good. Right, we're almost there. What's next on Flywheel's blog? Blog comments. So I'll come back to our template to add those. Firstly, I'll just drag in a spacer. Now we need the post comments widget. That's just another dynamic widget. So it's under the theme elements in the widget menu here. Now the only available skin and styling right now for this widget, at the time of recording anyway, is theme comments. This uses the currently active themes design and layout for the comment forms. So for now, that's totally fine. It doesn't look exactly like Flywheels, but it's okay. Then we have links to more articles underneath. Now this is now a completely new block on the page. It's a whole new section. So we've broken out of the main content column now, out of that 3-column layout. So in our template, I'll add a new section. It can be 1 column. In the section settings, in style, I'll give it a really light background color. And again, for speed, I'm going to fast forward this next bit and then explain what I did. So this image is just an image widget. This is just a heading widget. I also added a good bit of padding to this section just to create some room inside the section itself. And then for the posts themselves. Now Elementor has a posts widget, which is perfect for this. Drag that in. Okay, we'll want the cards skin. 3 columns is great. We only want 3 posts per page. Happy to use only the medium-large version of each of the featured images. That's totally fine. The image ratio on Flywheel's blog is very small. It's about 0.3. In metadata, we don't want date or comments. For the badge over the image, we can remove that. Flywheel don't display one. And then down to query. Now that just means which posts we want to show. Now we want to leave this as showing posts. That's great. But further down in advanced, let's set order by to random. That'll just pull in random posts, which is fine for this purpose. Important here, we need to always exclude the current post from displaying in this block. This block is more articles, so we don't want the same article being suggested that we've just been reading. And then in the style tab, under card, we don't want each card to have a box shadow, so let's turn that off here. Then under content, so we'll make the title nice kind of dark grey. We want the title font to be Montserrat. Down to the excerpts, let's make those around 16 pixels size. And then for the read more, they can be the same. Okay, let's just preview that quickly. I think that is looking pretty good. One more bit to do. Let's check Flywheel's blog one more time. So the last part of the layout is a full width email sign up block at the bottom of the page. Now it'll be hard to get this exact layout and effect without a fair bit of custom CSS code. The precise way this laptop image sits within this block, especially responsively. Now their layout is hand coded. I don't want to go down a CSS rabbit hole here in this video, so let's get pretty close using just Elementor standard controls. And there's a little bar underneath with links to Flywheel's social channels as well. So once more for speed, I'm going to build this, but fast forward and then explain what I did. So this is a new section. It's got 2 columns with a purple background color. This is just an image widget. I've not changed any styles on this, but in the section itself, in advanced, notice I added top padding. So that's that space here. I added some left and right padding to give breathing room on smaller screens. I've done that for every section. But notice there is 0 bottom padding. That's just so that the image sits on the bottom of the section. I didn't want a gap down here. And then here on the right is a heading widget. Now this is set to Museo Sans Rounded, which is a typekit font. I set that integration up earlier. And a standard Elementor form with a bit of styling. And that's pretty much it. It's not exactly like Flywheel's, but it is close. And then finally, that footer social channels bar. So this is just a 2-column section with a dark purple background. And I set the columns to be 50% width each. This is a heading widget. Now I set this one to be right aligned, just so it sits over here. And then the social icons widget with a bit of styling. Shape set to be circle. And then in style, just a bit of custom color styling. And that, my friends, is the entire single post template complete. Phew. Now, of course, at every stage, we should also have checked responsive to tweak how it all looks on tablet and mobile. But if I go back and do that in this video, we're all going to be here all day. I'm sure you've got better things to do. So sticking to desktop mode for now, let's have the moment of truth. Let's see how our template looks when it's applied to all our blog posts. So first, we need to publish our new template. And we now set the display conditions, meaning where do we want this template to be applied? So add condition, and we don't want it applied to all singular, or that will apply it to all pages and other things too. We only want blog posts, so it's all posts. And then publish, and job done. Okay, let's see how this looks. I'll come over to the list of posts in the WordPress admin panel, hover over the top post, and view. And yep, that looks great. So here's that post's featured image, the post date, the author profile, all pulled in via Elementor's dynamic widgets. Let's view another one. And this looks great as well. All this dynamic data pulled in from the blog post that we're currently viewing right now. But one more. And there we go. Featured image, post title, date, author, category, content, as well as all the other elements that we added too. And that's it. Now we have one master single template that powers all our blog posts. In future, if we want to redesign our blog all the way across our site, we can do it in one place by editing our single template in Elementor's library. And it's great to not be restricted by our theme's single post design. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear what you think. If you've got any questions or comments, drop them below this video and I'll do my best to answer. Huge thanks to the Elementor team for having me as a guest today. Been great fun. Thanks guys. I'll see you all soon.